Okay, in this video we are going to fill out the foldable for the different types of triangles. It's an orange piece of paper. It looks like this. Triangles on one side and angles and sides on the other. First thing we need to do is cut it out. Okay, now that we've got it all cut out and folded up, this is what it should look like. So there's two different ways that we can classify triangles. We can classify them by their angles, or we can classify them by their side lengths. So when we classify triangles by angles, there's three ways we can classify them. We can classify them as acute triangles, right triangles, or obtuse triangles. An acute triangle, it's going to look something like this. You can see the little marks in here. They all have one arc in them. That means that each angle is the same. And in an acute triangle, all angles will be less than 90 degrees. So they may not all be the same, but they're all going to be less than 90 degrees. Now there is one other way. We can have an equiangular triangle. An equiangular triangle, all the angles would be the same and they would all be 60 degrees. But with an acute triangle, they may not be the same. They could just all be less than 90 degrees. If we classify it as a right triangle, that means we have one right angle, and that's indicated in our triangle with a little box. And right triangles are kind of special. There's going to be a lot more stuff that we're going to learn later on throughout geometry that just has to do with right triangles. And then we can classify them as an obtuse triangle. And in an obtuse triangle, we would have one angle that would be greater than 90 degrees. We'd have one obtuse angle, and then that would make these other two angles acute. Classifying triangles by sides. There's three ways we can classify our triangles by sides. It can be equilateral, it can be isosceles, or it can be scalene. And so an equilateral triangle, all three sides are going to be congruent. This would also be an equiangular triangle. So all of the angles would be 60 degrees in an equilateral triangle. And this E I'll tell you about in just a minute. An isosceles triangle, we would have two sides that are congruent. Isosceles triangles, kind of like right triangles, they're kind of special. Some cool things happen. If these two sides are congruent, then the two angles across from them are going to be congruent. These would be called base angles of an isosceles triangle. And if these two sides are congruent, these two angles would be congruent. So we'd have two sides that are equal. And in a scalene triangle, we don't have any sides that are equal. So you see this is marked with one mark, this is marked with two marks, and this is marked with three. That indicates that they're all different measurements. So no sides are equal. And this EIS, this is how I remember what triangle's what. So E, equilateral, we've got three lines here that are equal. When we have isosceles, we have two sides that are equal, so we have two lines. And a scalene, it starts with an S, and there's no sides on there, so there would be no sides congruent. Go ahead and glue this in your notebook.